Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
And we welcome you to this Thursday edition of the show, penultimate show of the week. Good to have you all with us. Lots to do over the next 60 minutes on over 270 affiliates across the United States and Canada. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate that as well. You can catch the show there Monday through Friday, commercial free. Sam Yarnell will be here. Talk to him about something we'll be discussing here in the big story in just a couple of moments. Also get into it with him on the NFL. Last week we talked about teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that we think could make the playoffs this year. Today we'll do it the other way. Teams that made the playoffs last year that we don't believe will make the playoffs this year. That coming up a little later on in the show. Also some other news from around NFL training camps, injuries, hold-ins, and the like. Another story involving an NFL player dealing with injuries from head trauma, illnesses that are linked to playing in the NFL. There's another story of a guy that you watched plenty and rooted for, undoubtedly if you were a fan of the Green Bay Packers. And his story is coming up a little later on in the show. Odds and Ends featuring Tony Romo and what I think is probably the end of his career at CBS. That coming up a little later on in the show. But we start things out as we always do on this Thursday. It's time for the big story. And the big story is presented by the Daily Wrap, our Substack newsletter. Monday through Friday, you can get the Daily Wrap delivered to you for free. Go and subscribe today. All you got to do, scan that QR code right there below me. It's very easy to do. And again, it's free. You get the newsletter every afternoon. We would appreciate you doing so. All right, I don't want to waste much time talking about the newsletter today because I want to talk about something. I'm going to say something today on the show, and I've given this a lot of thought. This is not a knee-jerk reaction, although it may seem that way when we discuss it in the context of the news that Tarik Skubal is going to be traded in all likelihood here at the trade deadline, the Dodgers being the most logical choice for where he lands. I am going to utter words today. They're going to leave my mouth, enter the universe, that I never thought I would say. And understand that if what I utter right now comes to pass, it impacts me negatively. Okay? Baseball being played in 2027 is a good thing for me. Baseball not being played in 2027 is a very bad thing for me, given what I do for a living. But I'm going to say something right now that I never thought I would say out loud. Baseball's going to need a work stoppage. Baseball's going to need a new way of doing business. Because the way it's going right now is not the way a sports league should be operated. You heard me right. This is not an anti-union stance. This is not a pro-ownership stance. It's not an not a pro-player union, anti-player union, pro or anti-ownership. It's neither. It is a fan looking at the sport of Major League Baseball and saying something has to change. The system that is in place is not working. Period. And Tarik Skubal is just another symptom of the illness that is the current structure in Major League Baseball. I want you to think about every other sport. Let's run through it. You got a great quarterback that you draft in the NFL. Plays well for 3 or 4 years. Contract time rolls around. There might be some haggling. But you know what? He's going to stay on your team. If he's as good as Tarik Skubal is as throwing a baseball, as a quarterback is throwing the football, That quarterback is going to get signed. He's going to be on your roster. Fans aren't going to have to lament the fact that he's going to play for another team, let alone the best team in baseball, the NBA. Victor Wembanyama. He's not even up for contract renewal yet, and they've already re-upped him and made sure that he is locked into place. In the NBA, you got a star player, you draft him, gets through his first few years as a rookie, you hang on to him. NHL, we just saw Macklin Celebrini re-signed by the San Jose Sharks. Most lucrative deal in the history of the NHL. Whether you think that's fair or not, Connor McDavid, line one. You keep your stars. It is only in baseball that we see this time and time again. How many times for years did we see it with the A's in the 90s and 2000s? How many teams around baseball can't keep their stars? Are unable to keep their stars. There's no way, when you look at Tarik Skubal, back-to-back Cy Young Awards, 31-10 over 2024 and 2025. All the strikeouts, all the great starts. There is no way you can convince me it is a good thing in Major League Baseball when the Detroit Tigers, their fans more than anything, because we could sit here and quibble over whether some owners are just cheap, some owners would rather, get the revenue sharing money. We could sit here and quibble over that. And there is blame to go towards owners and players in this. But the bottom line in all of it is, this cannot stay this way. It is not sustainable. It can't happen. Tarik Skubal should be a Tiger for life. And instead, he's going to go, in his free agent year, play for the Dodgers. They're going to win a third World Series. Let's just admit it. And then who knows what happens next year. But I'm of the belief now, more than I've ever been before, if a work stoppage is what it takes to change the current system in Major League Baseball, then a work stoppage is what we need. I don't care if there's no baseball in 2027. You heard me right. I don't care if there's no baseball. This system cannot stay this way. Every other sport has it. Major League Baseball is the only one that doesn't. We're coming back. All right, I've had my say in the big story on this Thursday. Let's see what Sam Yarnell has to say. Well, Jeff Passan reported it last night. I don't think anybody's probably shocked at this point that Tarik Skubal's going to be pitching somewhere else after the trade deadline early next week. Likely made his last start for the Detroit Tigers last night. And it is remarkable, Sam, as I was just talking about it in the big story. It's remarkable to think about this franchise, the trajectory they were on. They were a contender, playoff team, rising prospects, Torkelson. We've seen Dylan Dingler, all these different guys coming up through the system, to a point where we're talking about a teardown and Tarik Skubal pitching somewhere else, not being in Detroit for the rest of his career, as you would think a future potential Hall of Fame pitcher would be. It's remarkable just to think about the collapse that is the Detroit Tigers and how much of that is injuries this year, plus mismanagement. You see a lot of teams that go and make sure to get pitchers wrapped up under contracts, get players wrapped up under contracts, and obviously the Tigers didn't do that. There was some malfeasance here as it relates to Skubal. Just the entire picture. I know people are going to focus on he's going to the Dodgers and it's the end of baseball, and I agree with all that, and we could talk about that. But just the overall picture on what all of this means is kind of stunning to think about.
Yeah, it's funny, Jason, because it does seem like there's a solid population of baseball fans that have kind of accepted Tarik Skubal already as a Los Angeles Dodger, and I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, man, like if I'm the Dodgers, looking at where that team's at right now, like everybody's starting to come back, like a lot of pitchers on the IL. I don't need Tarik Skubal, especially in a contract year where, I'm the Los Angeles Dodgers. I've got a great farm system on top of what I've already got in the major leagues. We don't know what's going to happen with this whole lockout thing. I don't need to compromise any of those prospects. Yeah. There's no reason for any of that. So, I actually, to a degree, would be surprised if the Dodgers are the team that give up some extravagant haul of prospects to go in on Tarik Skubal. But to your point, man, I'm old. Maybe I'm old enough, or maybe I'm just too in baseball to remember the Detroit Tigers coming up years ago, 5 years ago at this point, you do the math. They were a team that had a big three of starting pitchers, of young starting pitchers that didn't include Tarik Skubal. Like the old Pepperidge Farm remembers me. Pepperidge Farm remembers when Matt Manning was supposed to be everything for this team. Like it is a masterclass in, like you said, mismanagement over the course of a long period of time. But folks, do not let yourselves be misguided at all. There is a lot of mismanagement here. This is a telltale. This is a perfectly painted picture, a Van Gogh of how much a bad contract can bite you in the behind immediately. I can look at that Framber Valdez contract and say, yep, that is where it all went wrong. That is where everything went wrong. Paying Framber Valdez all that money for him to come out and do exactly what he's done this year. It is rare, though it happens, especially in baseball, where one singular contract tanks an entire team and sends them into a rebuild. Feels like the Framber Valdez contract has done that for Detroit.
And it was just sort of when you look at the offseason in Major League Baseball, it was just one of those sort of throwaway deals. It was sort of one of those throwaway deals that, hey, all right, let's take a shot on this guy. And it could not have gone worse. They would have been better off, not that I wish injury on anybody. They would have been better off if he had gotten hurt at the beginning of the season and needed TJ surgery. Honestly, they would have been better off with him not on the roster than having him out there pitching every fifth day. That's how bad it's been on the Valdez side. On the Skubal side, as much as you might think, well, why did the Dodgers feel it? This is a thirsty organization, man. They do not rest on their laurels. They do not rest on success. They want to win every single championship right now, and it's going to be part of the driving force. There's not going to be baseball next year. I'm convinced now. There's not going to be baseball next year, Sam. There's not going to be a season. David Ardsma, who's on the show with us every Wednesday, is normally the optimist, and even he yesterday said 50-50 as to whether we see any baseball next year. And he's the eternal optimist of, they'll get it figured out, push comes to shove, blah, blah, blah. A month ago, I couldn't get him to say there wouldn't be baseball next year. Now even he acknowledges, as somebody who's been close to the Players Association in these negotiations in the past, that he doesn't think there's going to be baseball next year because of this red line that's been drawn, which is the salary cap. Go ahead.
Which is so funny because, you'll remember, Jason, a calendar year ago, more than that, 18 months ago at this point, at the beginning of last season, I was on this show. I was everywhere, yelling from the rooftops. We need to appreciate what we've got in baseball while we've got it. There's a massive lockout coming out. No one sees it coming. You were saying, oh, no, they'll figure it out. David was saying, they always get it figured out, Sam. What are you talking about? Yeah. They always get it figured out. Turns out they're not, but it's so funny how these things come full circle, Jason, because now I don't believe in that anymore, right? I have kind of come back around to the point where I do believe there's going to be a lockout, but I think that everyone's way over dramatizing it because the owners want to get this thing done sooner, and they're using the ever-used Jeff Passan as yet another mouthpiece. Oh, we're prepared to not have a single game next season. Yeah, it's going to get to about June, and those season ticket holder checks aren't going to be clearing, and those rich owners are going to want that extra income stream. I am expecting us to not have a full season, Jason. I don't think we're going to make it past July 1st without baseball.
Sam, here's where I disagree. I think some of these smaller market owners and middle market owners that are sort of looking at the state of affairs in terms of competitive balance And I know we could sit here and talk about all the different World Series winners there have been, and the Rangers won one a few years ago. I get that we could talk about all of that. But there are going to be, I think, a number of these small market owners that say, I'd rather have the doors closed. The A's sure as hell won't care. They're playing in Sacramento right now. They're not going to care. The Rays aren't going to care. They're waiting to get a new stadium built. I think there's a number of franchises out there that are going to sit there and say, you know what, close the doors. We don't care. We're going to be billionaires before the lockout. We're going to be billionaires after the lockout or strike or whatever it turns out to be. I think there are a number of owners that don't care. Now, David, to his credit, thinks that the larger market owners will care less than the smaller market owners because they could sort of withstand it. I don't think that's the case. I think owners are firm on it this time, Sam. I really do. I think it's going to be salary cap or no baseball, and the players are not going to budge. That is their line in the sand. They will not budge. We're coming back. We got more to do. Sports Rep continues on this Thursday. So last week on the show, we did an exercise that was kind of fun. We talked about NFL teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that we think will make the playoffs this year. We had a fun conversation around that. Today, Sam Yarnell, the NFL teams that made the playoffs last year that we don't think will make the playoffs this year. I want two, one from each conference. If you looked at my notes that I sent to you last night, give me one that made the playoffs last year that you don't think will make the playoffs this year from the AFC. Sam Yarnell, go.
Yeah, this is the easiest one ever. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know why I have to do this yet another year. Come on here and tell everybody that the Pittsburgh Steelers, at this point, they're not even a real football team. Like honestly, I'm tired of us pretending that they're a real football team. They lost 30-6 in the wild card round when they shouldn't have even been there, and the only reason they were is because Joe Flacco started multiple games for multiple different teams in that division last year. Yeah, easiest answer ever. Pittsburgh Steelers. Honestly, Jason, I'd be shocked if they won 9 games this year. I would be truthfully and honestly shocked. Listen, you're not a Mike McCarthy guy, so I don't have to sell you at all there. The Aaron Rodgers thing was tired and had run its course last year. What does that make it this year? I would be shocked. I mean, shocked if some combination of Will Howard and Drew Aller didn't get a couple of starts for this team this year. But yeah, I mean, it's so easily the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now you're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is a team that legitimately, and I took it a step further last week. I'll take it a step further this week. I could see the Pittsburgh Steelers being a team that made the playoffs last year, that finished last in their division this year.
Plus 158 to make the playoffs, by the way, on the Steelers this year. And to miss the playoffs, the Steelers are minus 190.
Yeah.
Tells you.
Yeah.
Just
sounds about right.
Tells you just about all you need to know. All right, give me one from the NFC.
The NFC is harder because there are a lot of good football teams over there, right? And I think what it comes down to in the NFC is you're betting on if you're picking a team out from last year, you're betting on the NFC North to get into the playoffs this year. With all that said, Jason, gosh, I don't want to do this. I think it's the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it's the Philadelphia Eagles. I think listen.
It turned into a hot take Thursday.
Yeah, I know. But listen, the Philadelphia Eagles are in this weird sort of like transitional period. And I know they just gave Jalen Carter a ton of money. And it feels like they were kind of handcuffed to do that to a point because there's nowhere else where he was going to go. But at the same time, you couldn't let him start a holdout because you never knew what that would turn into. Yeah, it's just weird happenings going on in Philadelphia right now. So I wouldn't be confident if I would take any team from the playoffs last year. Yeah, I guess the Philadelphia Eagles, because I got to take one. Maybe the Commanders get hot and win that division.
The Eagles, by the way, if you're feeling so inclined to make that wager, Eagles to make the playoffs are minus 154. The Eagles to miss the playoffs are, let's see, I have to scroll all
Plus
the way
120.
down. Plus 130. Plus 130 on FanDuel for them. I hate to do this because it's so boring when I do. I agree with you in the AFC. It is the most glaring, obvious choice. I'd like to come up with something else that makes more sense or equally as much sense, but I can't do it. I think the Jaguars are going to be back in the playoffs this year. I don't see them, and part of it is the division they play in. I mean, if there is a chance for anybody other than the Steelers to not make the playoffs, it's going to be one of those AFC South teams. And I would think, maybe you flip-flop Jacksonville for Indianapolis if you believe in the Colts, which I don't. I didn't believe in them last year. I don't necessarily believe in them this year. I'll tell you, if I really want to go crazy hot take, you're going to laugh at me when I say this. You know who I could see not making the playoffs? If there's a team that flip-flops? New England. I'm not a believer in the Patriots. I'm not a believer in Drake May. I'm not a believer in, I said all year last year that schedule was weak. And guess what? This year, that schedule is not weak.
That's a good point, and you're right.
I think there's going to be some regret. This will not be a 14-3 team this year, folks. I got news for you. They're not winning that division. I'll tell you right now. They're not winning that. They will not win that division. Buffalo's going to win that division. There's no doubt in my mind. Again, I'll take the Steelers as my pick, but don't be shocked if we are late in the season talking about the Patriots needing wins to get into the playoffs. I would not be shocked at all, Sam.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would, right? I think it's pretty easy to call them out for. I think in 47 of the states in the United States, I think it's pretty easy to call them out as a fraud. Call them out for what they were last season as a fraud. That said, having them all the way to going from the Super Bowl to not making the playoffs, that's you have to fire Mike Vrabel stuff. You have to fire Mike Vrabel, and I'm not even kidding you. You have to look for another quarterback. If you go from making the Super Bowl to not making the playoffs for a team that's done nothing, right? For the Kansas City Chiefs, it's a little more excusable, and Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL, which they lean on way too much, but sure, you can continue to lean on if you want. That's a little more excusable. The guy's got a couple of MVPs. Drake May has nothing. Mike Vrabel has nothing on their resume. They got all the way to the Super Bowl. If they miss the playoffs this year, the vultures are going to start circling around the Patriots organization.
I am not crazy hot take guy, but I'll give you another one. 49ers in the NFC. Would not chop. You're going to get 3 teams out of that division in the playoffs again? You're going to get 3 teams. You're going to get 3. You believe you're getting 3 teams out of that division?
You think the Seahawks are going back?
Oh yes, I think what they have is repeatable. Absolutely. I think I would not be shocked if it were San Francisco that missed out on the playoffs this year. That division is a murderer's row, man. I mean, you're going to have, you're getting Seattle and the Rams 4 times right there. Are they going to be favored in any of those 4 games?
Yeah.
Maybe at home?
2 of them at home. Yeah. They'll be favored in at least one of them at the very least. It's interesting, right? Because Seattle has had the most turnover, right? Because, Seattle won the Super Bowl last year. They were a great team last year.
Yep.
They lost both their coordinators. Like, it is going to be fascinating to see how this early season plays out. Because, like you said, it's a gauntlet of a division. You cannot slip up in the NFC West this year.
Yeah. We are coming back. We've got more to do on the show. Don't go anywhere. Good to have you with us on this Thursday Sports Wrap. Welcome back to the show. Linda Cohn will be on the show next week. Looking forward to that. Sam Yarnell here with us. Chewing the fat on some of the top stories of the day. NFL training camp news and notes. News you can use. One of the new staples of the NFL training camps and preseason and all these things. I still can't believe there's going to be NFL football on Sunday night. Is what we talk about now as hold-ins. And two guys, Sam, that are getting attention for hold-ins are Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. And look, in the case of both guys, I understand where it's coming from. You know, as these guys try to get deals done and try to protect themselves and protect their interests as we move through training camp. You know, and this is something we see more of every year. I've no doubt. You know, it's July 30th. I'm hardly worried about whether Bijan Robinson is out there running through every drill, and Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe a little more with Jahmyr Gibbs, is out there running every single drill or is fully engaged. But that's sort of the era of the NFL that we're in right now.
Yeah, no concern. Neither of these guys are going to miss a second of time. Each of these things are very easily explainable. Explicable, I guess I should say. The Jahmyr, they traded David Montgomery. What are you going to do? Are you going to give the ball to Craig Reynolds a bunch this year? No. Jahmyr Gibbs will be fine. Bijan Robinson, obviously, same thing. Your quarterbacks are Michael Penix Jr. and Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh, right now it's Cooper Rush.
Game.
Right now it's
Tyler
Cooper Rush.
Algier can't do that well. So yeah. Neither of these guys are going to miss a second of any sort of meaningful time. My guess is when you go back and look at last season and go back and look at who carried for the most yards and who carried the ball the most, these two guys were in the top 5, I believe. I believe both of them were in the top 4, actually. That is what this is. That is exactly what this is. You were a workhorse last year for our team. So much so that in the case of Jahmyr Gibbs, we traded away David Montgomery. And in the case of Bijan Robinson, we traded away anyone who can throw the football. So, yeah, they're not going to miss a second of time. This is, hey, you ran a lot last year. You don't need to run as much when nothing matters this year. We know you can do it. It's not like there's a positional battle or anything. This is the equivalent of having a really good quarterback and not making them throw every day of training camp.
By the way, Atlanta to make the playoffs this year is plus 220. But I got to tell you something. I think there's value there. And maybe you think I'm crazy. Yeah, that look tells me you think I'm crazy. I think there's actually value there because of the division they're in. I know everybody thinks Tampa Bay is going to bounce back and it's going to be this amazing season, even though you got Baker Mayfield in the midst of this whole contract conversation. I mean, the bottom line is they have no idea, and we have no idea. As much as we might like to think we can predict what is going to happen at the quarterback position with them, it is truly a crapshoot roll of the dice. Tua Tagovailoa indoors for as many games as you're going to get Tua indoors this year might be a little bit better than we expect if he can be healthy. I don't know what they're expecting from Penix, obviously coming back off the third ACL injury. Plus 220. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying there's value there if you believe that the NFC South is as crappy as it is. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. If you believe that you want to tie up a bet that's going to be settled on January 1st, on August 1st, then sure, go for it. But there's probably a lucrative savings account that could yield you more money and be way less high risk. Here's my thing about that with Atlanta. Sure, you could. There's certainly an argument to be made that they're better than Tampa Bay. I will not debate you on that at all whatsoever. I think that's a fight for the 3rd versus 4th best team in the division. Like, I think there's an argument. I'm saying all that to say, I think there's an argument to say that Atlanta's the 3rd best team in that division, but it's either 3rd or 4th. Right? Bryce Young came onto the scene last year, right? The Carolina Panthers showed you last year, right, that they're a real team, right? They're here to run that division now. So it's to me, going into the year, it's Carolina's division to lose, And then New Orleans has completely retooled their roster. By the way, Taysom Hill saying goodbye to New Orleans after 10 years yesterday. But New Orleans has completely rebuilt their roster, and now they're ready to win, and they have a real quarterback, right? Again, Atlanta doesn't have a real quarterback. We can Tua indoors this and Penix off the 18th ACL that. They don't have a real quarterback. The other 3 teams in the division do, and 2 of them have good quarterbacks who are under club control and aren't having a contract dispute. So that's my thing with Atlanta. When you look at them on paper, you can make an argument they're better than Tampa Bay, but that means they're the third best team in the division instead of the fourth.
Yeah, and who knows what's going on with Vita Vea down there as well.
Right, exactly.
Which is another
mess. The Tampa Bay situation is a disaster. I will not disagree with you there. It is a disaster in Tampa Bay right now.
I will give you 1 minute to tell me what you think about these Nickel City Buffalo Bills uniforms after Josh Allen said, "Stop hating on the jerseys, guys."
Didn't even need a minute.
That's it?
I'll reenact it for you in case you missed it at home.
That's it? I've got 40 seconds. You give me 20.
They're horrible. Top to bottom. Front to back. I love you, Josh Allen. We disagree severely on this. They're horrible uniforms, and I think it's so funny. It is just peak comedy that the Bills build this new stadium where no one can get a seat, and you have to pay $20,000 to get a PSL just to buy the seats, and then they release a jersey that says, "We're going back to our blue-collar roots." The Bills organization's losing it, man. They're losing it.
We're coming back on this Thursday edition of the show. We'll see you later. Welcome back to the show. Good to have you with us. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes, and could be an ending coming soon for Tony Romo. We'll explain. There is an advantage to being an independent show. And by independent, I mean we're not owned by ESPN or NBC or CBS or Fox Sports or these networks that are affiliated with sports leagues and affiliated to a degree that they're not allowed to say the things that we can say and talk about the statistics that we can discuss with any sort of breadth when it comes to head trauma, the NFL, former players, mortality rates, all of that stuff. They could give it a sliver, only a modicum of coverage. We could talk about it at length because we're not beholden to any of these sports leagues. This is why independent sports media is so important. I bring this up in the context of the latest news about Ahman Green, all-time leading rusher in the history of the Green Bay Packers organization, that illustrious franchise. He's 49 years old. He's basically the same age as me. I actually got to know him a little bit when he played in the UFL, the first iteration of the UFL for the Omaha Nighthawks. And Ahman Green recently opened up about his health struggles and the fact that he's dealing with the early onset of Parkinson's disease that he was recently diagnosed with and is fighting and will fight, I'm sure, very bravely. And this is on the heels of the Chris Johnson story, which came out a couple of weeks ago, where he opened up about his battle with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And this is Chris Johnson in his playing days, and this is Chris Johnson now, confined to a wheelchair, unable to speak using his own voice. They have an automated voice which can mimic him and replicate the way he used to talk. And I have to keep asking the question until somebody gives me the answer of when are we really going to address this issue of former NFL players, guys that I watched now in my lifetime because I am of a certain age, that are coming out of this game and years later becoming not even a shell of their former selves because they're dealing with these sorts of disabilities and illnesses that are clearly related to when they played. People could say, well, there's no direct link and there's no through line and you got to kind of No, we know. It is a defensible statement to say former NFL players were nearly 4 times as likely to die from dementia or Parkinson's disease as comparable members of the general population. I want you to hear me say that again. 4 times as likely to die from dementia or Parkinson's disease. And BU, Boston University, has been doing great studies on these things. They have led the way when it comes to discussing this topic and tearing the lid off of this story. BU had a study published just this month, examined 19,284 current and former NFL players who appeared in at least one NFL game and debuted between 1960 and 2019. Researchers reviewed National Death Index records for the 1,994 players who had died. Compared with the general male population, NFL players had 3.8 times the mortality rate from dementia, 3.88 times the mortality rate from Parkinson's disease, and nearly 4 times the overall mortality rate from neurodegenerative diseases, including dementia, Parkinson's, and ALS. When are we going to stop ignoring this issue? I think every NFL player should be asked about this. I think the Players Association should be asked. And Roger Goodell shouldn't get off any interview without being grilled on this. And I don't want to hear how they're making the game safer. Because when you have guys that are as fast, as big, as strong, as physically agile as NFL players are, and guys just colliding at high rates of speed, you can do anything you want, short of putting everybody in bubble wrap. You are not going to be able to protect from these injuries. It is an unsafe game no matter how safe you try to make it. And I'm tired of people simply ignoring that harsh reality. I would love to get every NFL player in a room and tell them, ask them, if I told you you could make $50 million in your NFL career, which is a pretty modest number, depending on if you're a star, if you're a role player, whatever. But by the age of 50, you have a 4 times more likely rate to have Parkinson's, ALS, dementia. Would you take that $50 million? I want to see what a lot of these guys would say. Who knows? Maybe they're all just of the mindset, hey, I'll roll the dice. I've got this amazing gift. I'll roll the dice. Because that is what it is now at this point. And we have to stop pretending it isn't. It is a roll of the dice. You might get lucky and get through it okay. You might come out of it like Amon Green or Chris Johnson. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Tomorrow on the show? I don't know. We're not talking NASCAR because NASCAR is off this week. We're going to have to cobble together a different kind of show tomorrow. Guest updates, we'll often post them on our X feed at the back page if you're looking for that. A couple of reminders before we go. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, the Monday through Friday audio version of this show is available wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, and a whole bunch more. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show Monday through Friday, and we encourage you to do that. If you want to do it while you're driving to work, on the treadmill, in the shower, just hanging out at home, it works just as well. I promise you. And most of the commercials are stripped out, limited commercial interruptions. Go and check it out. Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. We also have the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. This is the place to find all things video related to this show. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show, extended conversations, clips from the show. Anything you need to find from this show, from a video standpoint is on our YouTube channel. Sports Wrap shorts are there, 1 to 3 minute long vertical videos, news breaks, we talk about it. Sports Wrap shorts, the originals, the show, all of it on our YouTube channel. Go and check it out. It is free and we appreciate it. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page website is hot. It is live, and we encourage you to go and check it out. Sportswrap.tv. That is sportswrap.tv. That is the place to go if you want to check out the show in all of its forms. The aforementioned podcast, the aforementioned YouTube content, a lot of it shows up there. We've also got the Daily Wrap, our Substack newsletter. If you want to read what we're talking about, you can go and get it there in the Substack newsletter every day. You can subscribe on the website at sportswrap.tv. We've also got a contact section. You want to send us a note, drop us a line, love us, hate us, want to comment on the show, you can do it at sportswrap.tv. So make sure to go and check that out as well. You're looking for your affiliate, want to know where to find the show, you can do that as well at sportswrap.tv. And without any further delay on this Thursday edition of the show, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, you have to think it's the end for Tony Romo. In fact, I will predict on this show that it is the end for Tony Romo when it comes to his career at CBS. Now look, time heals all wounds. We are a forgiving society. We have a forgiveness culture in this world we live in. Heck, they're talking about John Gruden getting back into a broadcast booth and talking about him trying to be an NFL head coach again. And we all know everything that's sort of swirled around him during his time in the NFL as a head coach, which has led him to the sort of exile that he's been in. But in the case of Tony Romo, you have one of the most prominent NFL voices, part of the CBS team with Jim Nantz, the A team, getting pulled over in Wisconsin for suspicion, basically suspicion of DUI. He didn't want to take a breathalyzer. They went and brought him into a police station and ran sobriety tests. There was this whole thing. He gets cuffed and stuffed, thrown in the back of an SUV, and it didn't go well for him. And look, I have a couple of opinions on this. One, I take drunk driving very seriously. I've discussed it on the show before. I lost a friend to a drunk driver several years ago in 2019. And it was something that was very impactful on me. I once in my life, got behind the wheel when I was 21 years old. I got behind the wheel of a vehicle while I was drunk. Not proud of this. Nobody got hurt, but I got pulled over by a police officer, and that police officer, thankfully, because he knew who I was, and I'm, again, not proud of this, escorted me home, made sure I got home okay, and I never did it again. Scared me straight. Tony Romo, sitting there talking about going to visit his grandparents who are deceased. Tony Romo just sort of going through the motions with this is a very bad look for CBS. And in a day and age where we are more than willing to see media outlets punish their on-air personalities, people representing their networks, for behaving in certain manners, I find it impossible to believe that CBS Sports, especially when combined with the fact that some people believe Romo's been on the decline in terms of how he's been in the booth over the last couple of years, I find it very difficult to believe that CBS Sports will keep him in his role. I am predicting they will let him go. I don't think it's a matter of if. I think it's a matter of when. And they're probably trying to figure out who they're going to pair with Nantz as a result of that decision. But there's no way he could be back in a broadcast booth representing CBS, given what we've all seen now and what transpired. It'd be a terrible look for the network. We'll wait and see what the next move is by CBS. And that is odds and ends. And that wraps it up for us on this Thursday edition of the show. Thank you to Sam Yarnell. Thanks to all of you at home for watching. I'm Jason Page. We'll see you back here on Friday for an all-new edition of Sports Wrap. Bye-bye.